Welcome into Talk the Dog, the show where we find a bone to pick and a take to give. These are not hot takes. These is dog takes. Can I talk that dog? What's up? You really like that? Let's shut up and grab some tape.
It's not something you can hide away. Sooner or later, it starts to show. It's written on your face. You've been betrayed. Georgia football players and staffers and coaches can stand in front of a podium, in front of microphones, and in front of a camera, and they can tell me that they have not been offended or have not noticed any of the recent actions by the national media as of late. But I'm not exactly buying it. For those of you who don't know, the first episode of College Gameday aired this weekend. Kirk Herbstreit picked Alabama to win the SEC title and the national title. Pat McAfee chose Alabama to win the SEC title and the national title. And then our friend of the show, Josh Pate, yesterday chose Alabama to win the SEC championship game and the national title. Now, Kirby Smart and everyone in the building, when asked publicly, will tell you the outside narrative has nothing to do with the inside motivation. That's what they will lead you to believe, that the outside noise does not impact the standard. And to an extent, I do agree, right? You can't build the basis of your program by providing, some type of juice or some type of energy from the outside noise. That is not a way to sustain greatness. The only way to sustain greatness is all of the standard talk, right? Is all the consistency talk, is all of the kind of the boring stuff, if you will. That's really kind of the only way to sustain success. You can't be out here deriving energy and deriving motive from what people outside of the program are saying. That will only last so long. But if you ask me this, if you were to ask me today in August, said, hey, let's say Georgia and Alabama meet up December 2nd in the SEC championship game. What does that pregame speech from Kirby Smart sound like? Well, I'll tell you right now what it's going to sound like. The speech will be leaked by halftime. The pregame speech will sound exactly like what you think it would, right? Kirby Smart's going to stand in front of his team December 2nd, and he's going to tell them that every single one of those MFers outside this room didn't believe in you. That's exactly what he's going to tell them. He's going to use it once. Did Georgia get 12 months of motivation today? No. Did they get a season long's worth of motivation today? No. But they certainly got motivation for December 2nd if that matchup were to happen, right? They certainly got some bullet board material today if that were to happen. And again, this is not some constant put the stuff on the bulletin board type of material. That is not how Georgia operates. But we've heard the pregame speeches. We've heard the halftime speeches. What people say outside of his building does trickle in to those moments when he's trying to motivate his football team. So that's all that happened today, right? But I do want it on the record. As the national media is going out with their love for Alabama, again, understand something that the national media is loving on an Alabama recipe for success that they hated Georgia for back in 2019. For years, the national media told me, oh, Georgia can't win that way. I don't care how many great offensive linemen they have. If they don't change the quarterback play, if they don't have transcendent quarterback play, or transcendent, they don't have transcendent quarterback play, they won't win. They don't have the ability to throw it more than 30 times a game, they won't win. I've been told over and over and over again that no matter how talented Georgia was on the offensive line, that if they didn't change their offensive identity, become more of a passing attack football team, that they would not win national titles. And to an extent, by God, they were right. They were right. It took good to great quarterback play in 2021. It took 4,000 yards passing last year for the University of Georgia to win their second national title with Stetson Bennett at the helm. Now here we are in 2023, and yet everywhere I turn, national pundits and national media analysts are ignoring the most important position in the sport at one particular school. Why? Because Nick Saban's recruited really well? Kirby Smart recruited really well. He did, and it failed. The recipe for success of bully ball failed for a long time. Despite the fact that we have zero answers at the quarterback position entering the 2023 season, and by far, and by the way, it's been a little bit worse at Alabama than I think some people are kind of leading on. I'm not the Alabama insider, but as someone who's covered recruiting in this country for 4 years now, I know some people that are out of Alabama. I know some people that I trust over there inside that building, right? And from my understanding, They don't have an answer for a reason. Okay, the way they go about deciding this at a lot of schools is they obviously, go through practice and they evaluate practice and evaluate the performance of all the quarterbacks, and then they look at film and they do all that good stuff. But the only way to really assimilate game time decision making is to put some pressure on these quarterbacks in a meeting room and make them decide rapidly, hey, this happens, what do you do? No time to think, tell me your answer right now. And when they did this little experiment recently at the University of Alabama, Jalen Milroe, not great, Bob. Not great at all. Ty Simpson, touch and go, here and there. Tyler Buckner, I'm here to tell you, probably not going to be a factor, not from what I've heard this year at Alabama. Okay, you know who did the best in this rapid-fire scenario-based testing? The true freshman, Dylan Lonergan. Okay, it's not great right now at Alabama with regards to the quarterback room, and yet for some reason, everybody's just turning a blind eye. I get it. They have a great recruiting class. They have a great offensive line, but guess what? They're going to be starting a true freshman at left tackle. Whether it's Elijah Pritchett or whether it's the kid from Iowa that I'm drawing a blank on right now. Okay, Caden Proctor, the number one offensive tackle. Yes, 5-star, great. My number one tackle on the board last year, still a true freshman. Guess what? Justice Haynes, great. Still a true freshman. Gonna need to take totes in that running back room this year. Caleb Downs, great football player. Going to need to play a role in this defense that I keep hearing about is great. They've recruited at a tremendous level at Alabama. But we can't just keep turning blind eyes to everything, like the fact that last year they were 126th in penalties per game. Since when? Since when can Alabama not keep their guys in order? Since when? Since when is Nick Saban, the notorious disciplinarian, finishing 126th in penalties? No quarterback. Transferred a quarterback in midsummer. No quarterback to date right now. And yet, yes, for sure, national title. Why not? National title. Welcome into today's show. We've got a loaded one for you. It's going to be a great one. We got SVP's reaction to the outside noise that we're talking about today. Kirby Smart said Carson Beck recently in an interview, quote, could have been the starter the entire time. We're going to play a little game of what if a little bit later. We will talk about the things that it will take to beat Georgia in 2023. And we got a case of give them three. Coming up later, we got three things that you should be excited to see this weekend. And Kirby Smart updated the injury reports today as well. Boys, I told you I was going to be a little hot, told you I was going to be a little heated, told you I had 10 to 12 minutes to absolutely cook to open the show. How are we doing today?
So week one has arrived, so doing fantastic.
Dude, it's football season.
It is football. I thought about starting the show with a little football chant, little war chant to get going, baby. I am juiced, dog. I can't explain how excited I am for this season. And in fact, I'm going to do my best to explain how excited I am for this season to open MBR. So stick around. We got an opening for that, man. It is great time to be alive. It's a great time to be a college football fan, despite what everybody has said. It is a loaded show. I want to ask you guys to make sure you're hitting that thumbs up button. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel, and make sure you're hitting that like, subscribe, rate, review, all that good stuff. If you missed any portion of tonight's show, okay, we are available on podcast platforms. Just however, wherever you find your podcast, search the Film Guy Network. We'll pop right up. Appreciate you guys for showing love. Y'all do such a great job of wherever we direct you, wherever we send you to show some fan love, to show some show love. Y'all dang sure do it. So we appreciate you for doing that. I also want to give a quick shout out to Prize Picks. Hey, we have extended and extended and extended content this season. I don't know if you've noticed it, but through the first month of the season, guys, we are producing tons and tons of content. And technically the college football season hasn't even started yet. Whether it be Friday nights mic'd, whether it be, 8 hours of live programming here Monday through Thursday, whatever it is, the additional film studies on top of everything, it's only made possible through our partners like Prize Picks. So make sure you're signing up today using promo code Brooks. You get a 100% deposit match over there. What does that mean? Put in 50, you get 50. Put in 100, you get 100. Maxed out at 100% deposit match over there. Okay, I gave you my takes on this Bama propaganda, that be out here. What are you guys' takes on this Alabama squad in 23?
The feeling that I get with all of it is I just feel like media members are picking Alabama because they almost feel like they have to pick Alabama. Like there's this sense and feeling between all of them that is like no way Alabama goes 2 years in a row without making the college football playoff because it's Nick Saban. It's Alabama. It's the team that has dominated college football for the longest time now. And so I feel like them picking Alabama to win the SEC and then picking them to win the national championship is like Well, we have to because it's Nick Saban. There's no way they do it 2 years in a row.
I saw something that I think it was Joel Klatt said this. He said that if you want to have a long and successful media career making predictions, just pick Bama. Just pick Bama. Every single time, if there's a question, just pick Bama. And that's fine. That's all fine and dandy if we were talking about 2008 to 2020. I'm all for this 14, 15-year run where Bama was winning every other national title. But that is not the current state of college football. Like when people throw that stat out, they're talking about college football from 2008 to 2020. As if 2021 and 2022 did not happen. As if he didn't have a Heisman Trophy candidate caliber quarterback and the best edge rusher in college football for 2 straight seasons and managed to lose 4 football games. As if that did not happen. I get it. It's Bama. I 100% get it. But they are a top 3 roster with mall cops at quarterback right now. That's all we know. So, I just don't get it. They're entering a season with no known quarterback. They're a roster reliant on talent, okay? And it's a roster reliant on talent from freshmen at 3 critical spots. Tackle, running back, safety. We're going to be playing young football players at 3 critical spots with no known starter at the quarterback position. Sure as shit, undefeated, national titles.
I think a lot of the media, for whatever reason, if you have one narrative made about you, that's the narrative until the end of time, until it's proven time and time again that it's wrong. For example, for the longest time, the narrative was Kirby Smart can't develop a quarterback. Kirby Smart doesn't know how to run an offense. Even when they won the title in 2021, it's, they did that with the defense. Quarterback play wasn't good. I think it's the opposite for Nick Saban, where no matter what, the media still kind of believes that, it's Nick Saban. They can win no matter what. And I think that's kind of what you're seeing suffering now, even though all signs point that this isn't the 2015 Nick Saban team. This isn't 2012 Alabama. It's not the same. So I think that's why the media is still buying into it.
Guys, they played 5 top 25 football teams in the first 9 games of the season. Now, a lot of people will look at that and they'll say, well, they get some of those teams at home. Okay? You got Texas week 2. Okay? Texas, by the way, who is an Alabama win away from having all of Uncle Mo in the history of Uncle Mo. If Texas beats Alabama on the road, you're going to see a Quinn Ewers, Johnny Football type of hype. It's going to look and sound and feel like that. Texas, if they beat Alabama week 2, which they've got a solid chance at it, okay? If that happens, Texas, all the momentum in the world, and Alabama's probably sitting there, depending on how quarterback play goes that week, looking into week 3 going, all right, well, we still got to figure out our quarterback the rest of the season. So whatever it looks like the first week of the season, they're continuing this quarterback competition into that. And then they will go into Texas with a true first career start for those guys. Because whoever gets to start this weekend for Alabama, it's a moot point. They're still evaluating the position. They've told you that.
And that's what gets me about this whole thing is looking at it from a Georgia perspective, even last year, going into the 2022 season when Stetson Bennett was your starting quarterback, the media was concerned that Stetson Bennett was not a quarterback to go and win another national title. There were questions about it. And even this year for Georgia, the question about Georgia is, what's the quarterback room? What is Carson Beck going to look like this year? But at least Georgia has an answer at their quarterback room. They are telling you Carson Beck is a starter, but then they go and talk about Alabama, and it's like the quarterback discussion doesn't even exist for them.
It's also funny to hear them talk about that offensive line, right? The offensive line is great. Don't get me wrong. We've talked about it here on this channel. Whether it be J.C. Latham, Tyler Booker, the kid from Buford that's at center, love their left guard as well. They have good offensive line play. But again, these teams that were made up just like Alabama were at the University of Georgia, Alabama was right now, or is right now. Those Georgia teams from 18, 19, and 20 stylistically look just like this. Look just like this. Okay, you're telling me this Alabama offensive line that we think so great this year is going to be incrementally better than Isaiah Wilson, Ben Cleveland, Trey Hill, Saul McKinley, Andrew Thomas. Those are 5 NFL football players if one of them doesn't get hooked on drugs and rap music. Those are 5 NFL football players, all right? Really solid ones too. And when quarterback play deteriorated, guess what? They were stuffed in a phone booth and couldn't move the football, all right? So I just don't understand why we watched that happen in college football just 2 or 3 years ago to a really predominant, highly touted and highly talented football team. And then we flash forward 4 years later and we just ignore it. Let me ask you something right now, chat. people in the studio right now, producers. If I walked into Nick Saban's office right now today and I said, hey, bud, you get Jake Fromm this year. That's who you get. Fuck all this quarterback competition. You get Jake Fromm this year. All right, you're going to get 3,000 yards. You're going to get 28 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, and it's just going to be mediocre. But that's what you get. Dude, he would sign up for that right now. He would jump on that so damn quick, he wouldn't even blink. Yes, we'll do it. Please, give me Jake Fromm. Please, would he not?
Oh, he would.
Yeah, you have to.
The idea of Nick Saban begging for Jake Fromm is crazy, though. But I think another, to play devil's advocate, everyone criticizes those Georgia teams for how they play it. Those Georgia teams were in the SEC title. They were relatively fringe playoff teams. They were one Bama win away. I guess if you're looking at it from that perspective, Alabama can still very well have terrible quarterback play and win the West. And at that point, it's Nick Saban. He's always coaches well in those big games. So I guess that's where maybe it's coming from, where it's the quarterback play. You're going to get there in spite of the quarterback play, and then Nick Saban's going to give you that edge. But again, I don't know how much of an edge he's going to give you.
Yeah, I mean, we're just not going to be able to show up in January and just be like, all right, we're bigger and better than y'all. So here we go. 45 carries, Derrick Henry. Like, it's not what football is nowadays. It's not what it has turned into. It's not what it looks like now. Can they do it? Maybe they can go 15 games of just being bigger, badder, better than everybody else in college football. But I've got a feeling that that's not how this works, okay? If Illinois can stick Michigan's butt in a phone booth, why can't LSU do it to Alabama this year? Why can't one of these SEC programs do it to Bama this year? Okay, where their quarterbacks actually got to go make a play. I mean, it's so funny because, like, Bama fans will watch this and be like, Brooks is such a homer. Listen to this Georgia guy shit all over Alabama. Guys, go back and listen to my takes about Georgia's 2020 football team. Go listen to how much I shit on that appearance they had at Kentucky and Lexington when they scored 14 points 2 weeks before, the week before a bye week, and then going to Jacksonville to play a Florida team that was averaging 45 points. Go listen to the analysis. You know what the analysis was? You cannot beat Kentucky and play Kentucky the way that will not beat Florida. Okay, you can't do it because the moment you have to show up and play like you got to play to beat a team like Florida that year, you're just not going to be able to surmise it. So guess what, Alabama? When you go through a whole regular season beating Mississippi State like you want to beat Mississippi State, and then come playoff time, you got to score 45 to beat Ohio State, and you can't do it. That's a problem. It's going to be a problem. And that's the problem that nipped all of these teams in the bud that were one-dimensional football teams. It's blasphemous to me that we can go into a season saying, one-dimensional football team going to win the national title. Like, I know we're harping on this for a long time, but it is that flabbergasting to me. I don't get it.
I don't get it either. I've been looking every time I look at Alabama this offseason and leading up to the year, I'm just like, I just don't get the feeling that this roster is built to go in, run through the West, go into Atlanta, and win a national title.
But the recruiting rankings, Jay Will. The recruiting rankings.
And that's what we heard last year, that they're the most talented roster ever with Bryce Young at quarterback and Will Anderson at edge rusher, and they go out there and lay an egg and don't win the West.
And it's not even as much offense for me. Bama's defense hasn't been world. They've been a great defense, but they're not the Bama defenses that you saw when Kirby Smart was there. That defense has been on a steady decline since he left. So it's very interesting that kind of gets looked over as well, where no one goes, that secondary might be an issue. It was an issue in the Tennessee game. They play Tennessee again this year. So it's very interesting to see. No one really is concerned about defense because the whole talk is this murder ball. We're going to run the ball at you and pound you down for 60 minutes.
Interesting. Very, very interesting tactics heading into the 2023 season. Also interesting, listening to Kirby Smart tell ESPN folks, was it ESPN during an interview?
I believe that's what it was.
Yeah, I think he went on that college football podcast that Reese Davis does and sat down with those folks and did a little interview. And it was interesting to hear him say essentially that there was a chance that Carson Beck was the starting quarterback of the University of Georgia the entire time. And for those of you who don't remember, there was that weird transition period where, JT Daniels is kind of hurt and they don't know who's going to start against UAB. Carson Beck was the backup the whole offseason, the whole preseason camp. And then UAB comes around and it's like, all right, open competition. Stetson Bennett wins competition that week during practice, goes out 5 for 6, 225 yards on his first 6 passes, throws 3 touchdowns, end of story. 30 starts later, 2 national titles later, Carson Beck just now starting at the University of Georgia. So I thought it'd be a little fun to take Kirby up on his word here and just play a little game of what if. What does the University of Georgia's football seasons look like the last 2 years if Stetson Bennett is never the starting quarterback against UAB, if Carson Beck takes that job and just runs with it the last 2 seasons, what does Georgia look like?
I think the biggest question I would like to know is what the heck does Georgia's quarterback room look like going into this year? Because if Carson Beck is the starter for 2 years, he goes out there and plays well. He's probably in the league at this point. Stetson Bennett, of course, is no longer around. JT Daniels still transfers to West Virginia, we'll say. And then your Gunnar Stockton, Brock Vandegrift, maybe they stick around for another year in this scenario. So that's what I would be interested to see. But I think the biggest thing is I don't know that you're talked about as highly without Stetson Bennett, because a part of the appeal to Georgia was the fact that Stetson Bennett was one of the greatest college football stories in history. Yeah. And that was a great – now, of course, 2 national titles does that too, but Stetson Bennett's story was really what got people glued into what Georgia and Kirby Smart were doing.
Yeah, the idea of the mailman and the former walk-on and all the Sports Center hits and all the talking about him probably doesn't happen if it's just some 4-star recruit that's doing what Georgia quarterbacks are always expected to do.
Yeah, I think at that point it's just, well, it's about damn time. Like you were supposed to do that already.
Yeah, that's a great point.
I don't think that you're back-to-back national titles if Carson Beck starts through the rest of that 2021 season.
Yeah.
Not because I don't think Carson Beck plays as well in 2022. He would be eligible for the draft in 2021. If he had a great season and, lands on, hey, you're a second-round pick from an agency or you just won the national title, I think he's gone. And then you have a first-year starter at quarterback in 2022. They don't beat Ohio State if they get in that situation. They probably don't beat Missouri.
See, I actually think they lose the 2021 national title with Carson Beck as a first-year starter. I think Stetson did a lot of things that year to settle a bunch of issues. It sounded like great offensive line play, but when you really studied it, like Stetson a lot of times was kind of making people miss with his legs, extending plays. They kind of reverted the offense more to like a boot offense and a lot of stretch zone type stuff. They morphed into an offense that was kind of surviving interior guard play and interior center and tackle, or interior offensive line play with a mobile quarterback. Not to mention that 2021 schedule, looking back, was a lot tougher than I think people give it credit for. Oh, yeah. The home game against Arkansas, I think, looks a lot more difficult with a quarterback in his first year I know it was Stetson's first year starter, but he was 25 at the point, so it wasn't like he's flustered. He'd already gone through everything that it was to go through as a starting quarterback. He had the 2020 season where he played like, ass. And then the 2021 season, he actually gained some confidence. But, I think the 2022 season works out the same way it does. I think Carson puts up the numbers that Monken's offense would have asked him to do.
I think one of the biggest things Stetson did in that 2021 season, he gave all of those guys someone to believe in. Mm-hmm. And I don't know that sophomore Carson Beck captures a room the same way that Stetson Bennett did in 2021. Because that whole year, when people were questioning Stetson, you heard the players repeatedly talk about, like, that's our dude, man. Like, Stetson is our guy. I don't know if that's the same for Carson Beck in year 2 of college football.
It's such a tremendous point from you because that defense was filled with alphas. I mean, absolute alphas. And I think Stetson is maybe he's not this outward going alpha, but he's certainly confident enough to never be shaken by a defensive room that's very boisterous, right? And when you're in a college locker room, it can be very easy as a quarterback when your defense is the best unit on your team to bite your tongue and to shut up and maybe kind of take a lesser role. But you're right. It definitely took a more confident and a much older football player to balance out those leadership roles.
Yeah, I agree with Jay Will's point. That 2021 season, when you go back and look at it, it was Georgia versus everyone, really. It wasn't just Georgia versus the media, Georgia versus opponents. It was Georgia versus their own fans. Like, you had the entire fan base pretty much saying, if we lose, this is Stetson Bennett and Kirby's fault. You had people ready to burn him at the stake after the SEC championship game. And I don't think you get those same feelings if, they get the guy they want in Carson Beck. So the fact that defense was really rallied around Stetson Bennett kind of gave that extra chip on the shoulder as well, I think.
So the Georgia fans that were on social media clamoring for JT Daniels that whole second half of 2021 season.
Oh, God.
Do you think they have a retrospective thought process of that where they're like, damn, the guy I wanted to play is at Rice? Do you think they think about it that way, or they're just like, Kirby still fucked it up?
So my theory on the JT Daniels fandom is that people hate being wrong, and will come up with any excuse that they can to do. I mean, there's people still to this day that go, JT Daniels, we have the same results in 2021. Our defense was so good we didn't need Stetson Bennett. It was JT Daniels who did that.
Well, I think, too, JT Daniels came in and started at, like, a perfect time to provide, like, a glamorous spotlight for himself because ending the 2019 season was kind of a bummer, and then all the way up until JT Daniels was started, there's some dark times a little bit for Georgia. So then JT rolls in, gets a winning streak going, looks like the final quarterback that Georgia found that can maybe take them to the promised land. And that's kind of what everybody bit into. And everybody was like, finally, this is our spotlight. This is our dude. This is who we're rolling with. We finally got the final piece. And so then when what they thought was it didn't turn out to be it, they were like, well, I don't know what to think anymore. And they just kind of held on to it. And they didn't want to not believe in it.
Bro, my mentions were a cesspool after that Mississippi State game. Because you remember, he throws for like 400 yards. He blows it up. Jermaine Burton has a great game.
Yep.
And like 2 months before that, he transfers in and everybody's like freaking out. And I do a film study and I'm like, 20 in, dude's good. Dude's solid. Dude's accurate. Ball comes out great. 25 out. Not all that great. Oh, by the way, can't really move. Oh, by the way, kind of makes careless decisions with the football. And everybody's like, shut up, you're an idiot. 5-star, Gatorade Player of America. Shut up. First game, 400 yards. Look at this idiot. This fat guy thinks she knows football. Rice. What will it take to beat Georgia in 2023? I've got a long list of things here. I want to hear you guys. I got a recipe for you. You want mine first? I know I've been tossing to you guys all night. Okay, let's hit mine first. I don't want to go last. I want to go first. Here we go. What will it take to beat the University of Georgia in 2023? By the way, haven't lost a regular season game since 2020. Since Florida 2020?
Last regular season loss was 2020 against Florida.
Florida 2020. So it's been a while since the University of Georgia's lost a regular season football game. But let's talk about in totality. All right, all of 2023, if Georgia were to go undefeated, here's why. Or here's why not, right? Here are the recipes to taking down Georgia. One, I think you have to get pressure on Carson Beck this year, more so than in years past. In years past, I would tell you, hey, I don't necessarily want to flush Stetson Bennett from the pocket. Kind of want to keep him in there, make him stand over everything, and make him throw everything out of a complicated pocket, right? A compromised pocket. But I think you're going to be able and have to, in order to have success defensively against Georgia this year, you're going to have to push 15 off his spot. You're not going to allow him to sit there and play on time and deliver strikes because that's exactly what he's going to do. And even when you do push him off the spot, even when you do pressure Carson Beck this year, guess what he's going to force you to do? He's going to force you to rally to the football and tackle. This is not a football player that's going to hold on to the ball. He will be Charlie checkdown. Georgia fans will get frustrated with him. I promise you right now, you're going to have a patient quarterback this year, Georgia fans. So as a defensive unit trying to stop him, I have to be able to rally to the football and make tackles in the open field against guys like Cash Jones, guys like Dejon Edwards out of the backfield on second and third down, right? Turnovers. That's pretty simple. If you want to overcome adversity, if you want to, defy the odds, if you want to be an underdog football team that wins, you have to win the turnover margin. That is not excellent analysis. That is nice and simple. It should be a recipe for disaster for any football team trying to have success against an opponent that is highly talented or superiorly talented to them. Now, number 3, okay, and this is key. I think to beat Georgia over the last several years, there's been one consistent recipe. You've got to have dynamic weapons at the wide receiver position, okay? Dynamic weapons. Think about the teams that have given Georgia really, really big problems, okay? Even like a team like Missouri. Last year they had Luther Burden and Dominic Lovett, really talented wide receiver weapons. Both of those guys had explosive plays in that football game to move the chains. But if you extend that conversation further to teams that have not only beaten them, but really given them problems, that Alabama matchup, Jamison Williams, Mechie, that gave you issues before one of those guys got hurt, right? That Oklahoma roster in 2017, that one gave you a little bit of problems, right? Obviously, Ohio State and Marvin Harrison last year gave you some problems. Even that LSU offense in the SEC championship game managed to put up points because they had dynamic wide receiver weapons. If you have that, you have a chance against the University of Georgia. And number 4, and this is probably the most important, okay? You got to have a defensive line that brings them brass knuckles, all right? You got to have a defensive front 7 that is willing to cave the face in of a University of Georgia football team, okay? If you want to beat Georgia, make their offense one-dimensional, period, point blank. Make their quarterback throw 35, 40 times in that football game. History tells me you will beat the University of Georgia in that situation. Those are my 4 boys recipes for beating the University of Georgia this year. What about you?
Yeah, first one I have was turnovers. You just can't give them free possessions. You know, you got to protect the football. And then on the other side, you probably got to have a turnover of your own if we're being honest.
Probably 2.
The next one, when you get in the freaking red zone, 3 is not an option. That has to be a touchdown. When you get the golden opportunity to push the field against Georgia's defense, you have to come away with 6 points because who knows when the next time you're going to get down there is. You have to get a touchdown in that scenario. Along with not turning over the football, you can't give them great field position. You don't have to score every drive, but you can't be giving them the field position at their own 40-yard line or even the 50-yard line. Like, you got to flip field position, play that chess match with them. This may seem like common sense, but especially with this new rule, it really comes into play. In the second half, you got to keep it close. Like, I mean, within at least maybe 10 or fewer points, because if Georgia is able to milk the clock, first downs, the clock keeps running out. They can eat so much clock away so quickly, and they can really keep you from having the football on offense. And then also the last one, you got to find a way to at least limit Brock Bowers. You can't take him away completely. You're not going to be able to do that, but you have to find some type of way where maybe he's not as much of an option as he typically is in that offense.
You got to have Kirk Herbstreit on the call going, where is Brock Bowers? Where is Brock Bowers? That's what you got to have, no doubt.
It's 3 minutes into the game and he's already doing that.
Yeah, where's Brock Bowers? Why hasn't he gotten the ball?
He loves asking that question.
Sir, we just got the rock.
So I had 5, and they're kind of similar to what y'all both said. But the first one I said is make Georgia's offense one-dimensional, and that's primarily by taking away the run just because their running back room is so banged up. If you can get Carson Beck into third in obvious passing situations, like you said, you can blitz him and get pressure on him because he's not as mobile as Stetson Bennett. We all know that. Next one is establish the run on offense. This is a Georgia D-line where there's more questions than there have ever been in the last years. It's not saying that they're a bad D-line, but you don't have a Jalen Carter. You don't have Jordan Davis and Devontae Wyatt there. So if you can take advantage of that and be able to establish the run and force them to maybe bring another guy down the box, it's just a famous Nolan Smith quote last year where it's we do more with less in reference to we can stop the run with 4 people. If you make them add another guy to the box, that might be an issue for Georgia. You can probably get some shots over the top.
And while we're here, you take away their strength. Georgia's strength this year, is, in my opinion, defensively, is their defensive backfield. If you require Malachi Starks or Javon Bullard to start having to play in the box, we are taking away from what Georgia's going to do best this year, which is confuse and make quarterbacks misidentify what they are playing in the back end. 100% correct.
Yep. That goes into my next point is you got to win your one-on-ones. The way Kirby Smart's defense is set up is that most of the time if you're a cornerback, you're on an island. So if you're a receiver, you got to win that ball. You got to get that 25-yard catch. And I think you can do that 3 and 4 times a game, set up and get some free points. You get that has to be a thing you have to do.
I think last year watching them play, like Georgia Tech even had success moving the football. And the way they did it is what you're talking about. They took slot shots. They just took the slot and said, all right, go run against that star. We'll try to beat him. And then the next possession, it was like, all right, we'll throw a back shoulder fade over Keely Ringo. Just trying to take a chunk, right? We're just trying to get 35 yards because the idea of taking, 5 plays to get 35 yards against this defense, it's not going to happen. But what can happen and what will happen is if, hey, throw it up, 50-50 ball, maybe we get a 45-yard completion. Now all of a sudden we're automatically in field goal range or better, worst case scenario, we've at least flipped field position. It's what I talked about last year when we watched film study. We had a term. Remember, it was downset hut, chuck it up. We created that term last year watching teams play offense against Georgia because it got to a point where they were literally saying downset hut, taking a 3-step drop and just throwing it up. There was no offensive concepts working. It was just, all right, our best bet is to try to win that one-on-one against that corner because we're damn sure not winning this 5-on-6 battle here in the box.
Yeah, I think the best example of that was that Kentucky game when they're backed up on their own goal line and Will Levis just throws a go route over Keely Ringo's head, gets mossed. And I think they score on that drive.
They got Kamari Lassiter later in that football game too, and it's the only way they've successfully moved the football.
Last 2 are get knots, non-offensive touchdowns, find a way to flip the field, steal possessions, things such as that. And the most importantly is have a quarterback that can extend the play. The last 2 games Georgia has lost or been able to lose, you've played Bryce Young, C.J. Stroud. Both times, they're not mobile dual threat quarterbacks by any means, but they were able to make enough happen to where you could find that open. You could find Marvin Harrison running across. You could get Jamison Williams across the field. So I think you have to have a quarterback that can extend the play.
It's always been the extenders, not the scramblers, that have given Kirby problems, right? Like even think about that Manziel game. back in 2012. He beats them on the road in Alabama. How many of those plays were scramble plays?
Felt like all of them.
All of them, but they weren't scrambled with his legs. He would extend, and then boom, find somebody, right? It wasn't extend, 40-yard run. That's not what it was. It's not what it has been.
Yeah.
And in fact, in years past, the guys that are notoriously scramblers, he has forced those guys out of the box. He has forced them to scramble. Watch Robbie Ashford. We talked about it the other day. Go watch Auburn play Georgia last year. The whole second half, some bitch is running to his right because they tricked him into doing it every single time. Oh, just give him a short edge. You know, Nolan's still playing that game. Nolan, just spike across the tackle's face. The tackle's going to wash you down. That dude's going to think he's got free grass all day long. He's just going to run to it. Watch. Okay, they've done this. They did it to Ian Book at Notre Dame, okay? They would strategically try to force him into thinking he's got green grass. Dude would take off, insert linebacker right there. We're going to show you a little bit of it in the National Hour, how USC's absolutely butchering these types of defensive calls. But nonetheless, they have made these guys. They made a killing off of scramblers.
Yeah, I do think the one thing that we kind of need to add is laying out the blueprint to beat Georgia is so easy. Like, you can lay out a blueprint to beat any team. Actually doing it is damn near impossible.
See, I don't even think it's that easy to lay it out. I mean, it's easy to say, yeah, they need turnovers. Like, you got to turn them over. Like, that's the answer to every upset. Like, you got to have explosive plays. Well, yeah, you got to have explosive plays. Like, it's really not. It's easy to sit here and give the easy cliche answers, but it's hard to search for actual like areas of deficiency that Georgia has, particularly defensively. Like, you're not really going to find it.
Yeah, you know? like name me a team that's going to stop Georgia's O-line, be able to run on their D-line, and has a quarterback that can extend plays like that. Oh, by the way, they can also win the turnover battle.
LSU. That's it. That's the only one I got.
That's it. And I think talent-wise, Georgia's on a completely different level than them.
Correct.
So.
Interesting. All right, we got a little episode of Give 'em 3 coming up. Give them 3. 3 things you are excited to see this season. I would like to see this in the comments from you guys. I know you're not going to sit there and comment all 3 things you're excited for. Maybe just hit me in the comments with the thing you are most excited for. I'm going to hit you right off the top right here. I'm really excited to see Tyke Smith play. It's not because I think Tyke Smith is going to be the best star to ever play at Georgia. It's not because I think he's going to play like an All-American, because maybe he won't. Maybe he will. Who knows? But I'm excited to see a dude play that spent the last 2.5 years really overcoming and battling things that are extremely hard to overcome. Okay? You have a major foot injury, that's tough. You have a major knee injury, that's really, really tough. You do those things after the year that you had at West Virginia as an All-American, you come down to Georgia to improve your draft stock, and just negative things continue to happen to you in terms of individual success. While you have a level of team success that was like never imaginative for a football player coming from West Virginia, Tyke Smith has had a roller coaster at the University of Georgia, and I hope things go exceptionally well for him this year. I hope he has multiple turnovers. I hope he has multiple big hits. I hope he never comes off the field, despite the fact that I want to see Jonell Aguero do freaky shit all season this year. But I hope 23 has a great year, because college football, in my opinion, the football gods should reward young men like this. Young men that went through hellacious struggles to get back onto the football field after having career highs, to have career lows like that, and then work your way back onto the football field. I'm excited to see him get a chance to play and play healthy this season. I'm extremely excited to watch Marius Mims. Like, I'm the film guy, but I'm really the offensive line guy. Like, there is nothing that makes me happier than watching exceptional offensive line play in this office on Sunday evenings. I mean, it gets me juiced. It gets me as excited as you ever could imagine anything. Happier than a fat kid walking into a candy store. I mean, I'm pretty happy when that happens. I mean, cannot get any happier than watching great offensive line play. And from everything I've heard, this dude's going to play some kind of football this season. If he remains healthy, if everything goes like I've been told, just watch. Just watch 65 this year. Take time, take your eyes off the ball, just watch 65. And you know how I know dude's fitting to have one of them years? Kirby went out of his way this year, or this week and today during his presser, to kind of throw some salt and throw some shade on the hype and the anticipation for 65 seasons this year. And I'm here to tell you, you know who doesn't get tapering of expectations? You know who doesn't get those? People who aren't fitting to blow shit up. All right? He comes out every single year and he's like, nah, don't be giving that kid his flowers yet. He's not ready for those. And then what happens? Dude goes out and has an All-American season every single time. Don't be talking about Trayvon Walker. He's got to go do something. Don't be talking about Jalen Carter. He's never even started for us. He got to go out and do something. Every year. And then guess what? Don't talk about Malachi Starks. Don't talk about Michael Williams. We're not ready for that. And then what happens? Dude goes out and has an All-American type season. Amarius Mims going to have an All-American type season. And then my last one for you, I'm excited to watch Mike Bobo get shit on by Georgia's fan base for putting up 40 points a game. I'm extremely excited for it. I'm so happy to watch 3rd and 18 happen, them get put in a real sticky situation, for them to run halfback draw, and then for everybody in my mentions to be like, Bobo sucks. It's going to happen. I'm excited for it to happen. I hope Bobo knows it's going to happen. I hope Kirby knows it's going to happen. And I hope you know it's going to happen. I hope you know that @BulldogFan769 is going to be on Twitter the first time they go 3 and out and claim that Mike Bobo should be fired. And for me, I'm ecstatic that it's going to happen because it means Georgia football's back, baby.
For sure. Hey, got to give you 3.
I give him 3.
All right, my first one. I'm excited to watch all of these I freaking earned it guys this season. What I mean by that is the Carson Becks who waited their turn and they finally get their season to start. The Marcus Rosemi-Jack Saints. The Tyke Smiths who's had to battle with injury and he's finally going to get his turn this year. Nyland Green who has sat on the bench and waited his turn at cornerback. Even a guy like Cash Jones, he freaking earned his time to come out on the roster and get significant snaps. So that's what I'm most excited probably for that. Just to watch.
What'd you call those?
Those are the earn it guys.
The earn it guys. I like that. I just call them DGDs.
Yeah,
you know,
that too.
Those
for sure.
some damn good dogs, man. You stick around.
Careful. Don't use that term too loosely now. People get on your ass.
No, man. Xavier Sori, damn good dog. I don't care what happens to that dude's career the rest of his time. He's a 5-star football player that waited 3 years to not even start.
Yeah, for sure. I'm excited to watch Bullard and Starks just wreak havoc as a duo at safety. That is just going to be so much fun to watch just because Malachi Starks is going into his second year of college. Like, even what he did last year, he's going to build upon that. We know what Javon Bullard is capable of and his playmaking ability. I think those two are just going to be so much fun to watch, and I'm really excited for that. And then my last one, I was going to go with Amarius Mims as well, just because of how you've talked about him and just kind of how he's also one of those earn it guys. Like, he had sat his waiting his turn. But let me think of a different one. I think I am just excited for this wide receiver group just because it has been quite some time since we've seen a group of wide receivers that can go this deep, have a variety of skill sets. You have guys that can play the X position, and then you have your slot guys that are big playmakers. So I'm just excited in general to see what they can do.
I think I said this last week or maybe the week before. I don't know. We do so much content nowadays. It's a wash. But I feel like every year we go into the season, we're like, hey, man, Georgia's got some pretty good weapons. And we say just like that. They got pretty good weapons. They're all right at wide receiver. But it's never like a known commodity. Like, when was the last time Georgia entered a football season with an 800-yard receiver in the SEC? Think about that. Because they got one of them right now in Dominic Lovett, or close to it. It's 797 last year, I believe it was. Okay? But even 750 yards. Think about it, Georgia fans. When was the last time you entered a season with a returner at the wide receiver position that has put up almost an 800-yard season?
Tavares King, maybe?
Exactly.
Mitchell,
this
maybe?
is what I'm talking about. This is what
It's
I'm talking
been
about.
close to 10 years.
It's been so long, and every single year we talk about it. Oh, they got some weapons. They got some talent. You got proven talent. That's different. We know. We don't think. We know that Dominic Lovett's going to be a good football player this year. Mm-hmm. What were you snapping about?
Hang on, just keep talking. Let me confirm this.
All right.
Okay.
Do we have some type of breaking news going on the channel?
Yeah, I think Sonny Seiler died.
Yeah, it's Georgia Football just tweeted that out. We are saddened to learn the passing of legend Sonny Seiler, the patriarch of our beloved UGA, will forever live in Georgia history. Our thoughts go out to the Seiler family and all of those who were impacted by the life of Mr. Sonny Seiler. He was 70 years old. No, that's 90 years old.
He was 90.
He was 90 years old today when he passed. So RIP to Sonny Seiler. I don't want to. I was talking about throwing a dead fish in the middle of the show. I don't want to give him 3 now.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's just talk about the injury report. Okay. Let's get this out of the way. Kirby Smart met with the media today and gave us a little update on where everyone is at. You heard about this tightrope surgery? Do you know what this is?
I heard about it when Tua. Yeah.
Yeah, Tua was the first guy I heard about it. So basically, high ankle sprains are a bitch. If anyone's ever had one, you know that. High ankle sprains are like, I'd rather break my ankle whole. Just snap it in half, put me in a boot, I'll see you in 6 weeks. That was before this tightrope surgery, all right? Tightrope surgery, apparently they go in, whatever high ankle sprain, whatever ligament was loosened, somehow they tighten that thing up and make you whole again, all right? Lawson Lucky was apparently a candidate for such a surgery, and he had that surgery, and he's already back putting pressure on his foot. He's not in a boot, he's out walking around. So that kind of tells you what this tightrope surgery is worth, and how high quality and how much it impacts the return value and the return timetable for football players with this type of injury. Again, man, high ankle sprains can be anywhere from 4 to like 9 weeks. Like, it can really, really linger for skill position guys. Not necessarily so much for the big guys, but them skill guys, it can really, really linger. I think Ernest Green's going to be fine. Sounds like he's been back at practice, according to Kirby Smart. Ladd McConkey, the same thing. Guys, we told you last week, Ladd wasn't at practice, but it's when we had media availability. That's not something to freak out about. Ladd's a football player that's going to be touch and go at practice the rest of his career. Okay, however long it lasts, Ladd McConkey will not practice 100% of the time the rest of his life. All right, he's a banged-up football player, will continue to be a banged-up football player, and he'll play through all of those nicks and scrapes and scratches and all that stuff. But sometimes you got to give him a Tuesday off. That's what that means, all right? So he's fine. It was apparently a back injury that flared up from last year, and everything's good. I don't expect to see Smile Mondon week 1, still dealing with the foot injury. Last time I saw practice and was able to go out there, Smile was still in a non-contact. Now, he had gone from just wearing tennis shoes during Indies to wearing cleats. So that is a progression point, I should say, for a person dealing with some type of foot injury. So there's good news there. But I think the timetable for Smile, and you guys would probably agree with this, is week 3 against South Carolina. Kendall Milton, according to Kirby Smart today, is about 80 to 90%. I wouldn't expect a heavy workload for Kendall on Saturday. Maybe get him out there and get him, some touches early in the football game. Let him rest. I wouldn't be pushing that anytime soon. Hamstrings are very finicky, particularly with a football player that's had a history of them, okay, a history of soft tissue injuries. Let's not push somebody at 85%. Let's push them when they get back to 100. I think Kirby Smart has shown a history of doing that type of methodical thought process when it comes to injuries in any type of room. Now, Dejon Edwards was back today, said he was going to practice today, and he's fine. He's had a sprained knee in years past. He was out there with a knee brace last week. Sounds like he's going to be back and good to go. Kamari Lassiter, been in a non-contact jersey all spring or all fall camp, but he's been practicing. Right? It's more of a, like Kirby said today, preventative issue or a preventative thing. Hey, the guy's got a black jersey on, don't hit him, but he's going to be practicing today. It was funny. We were leaving media availability the other day during practice observations, and as we're walking off the field, a field in which Kamari didn't really do much with a non-contact jersey during Indies and during the first portion of practice that we got to see. And then all of a sudden, as we're walking off the field, we hear Kirby Smart over the microphone saying, "Hey, NFL scouts that are here today, we got Arian Smith over here going against Kamari Lassiter. So he's good enough to take one-on-one reps and be advertised in front of NFL scouts. I would imagine he's going to be good enough to play on Saturday against UT Martin. So you're good there. Jackson Meeks, questionable with the foot injury. Kind of down the depth chart anyways there. Same thing with the Nylon Morissette with the groin injury. Jonel Aguero has a grade 1 hammy strain, according to Kirby Smart, but that was last week. Would imagine he'll be fine come Saturday if need be, but Tyke Smith needs some reps. Get him some reps. And Chris Peel is questionable with a turf toe injury. It sounds like a lot. When you read through all those names, it sounds like a lot. But in reality, okay, if you were to play today, you're probably without Kendall Milton, Smile Mondon, Lawson Lucky, David Daniel, and Jonel Aguero. Those are the only football players on this list that we just went through that A, won't be playing, and B, would have made an impact if they would be playing at 100%. So that's what, 5 names? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's 5 names. We went through it last week. Against Oregon last year, you had 8 potential starters or guys on the 2 deep that were on the injury report. Going into the Clemson game 2 years ago, you had 10 guys that were on the injury report. They were either on the starting unit or on the 2 deep. You're fine. Believe it or not, you've done good. You've done good this fall. All right, you have not had any catastrophic injuries outside of Branson Robinson, who was left off the list. So yeah, you got 6 guys. All right, it's not that big of a deal. Guys, thoughts on the injury report so far?
The best thing I heard during that is that you said on Saturday. because that means it is the week of the first game of college football. That's all I heard. That's all I kept thinking about is that.
Man,
you
it's
said
just
on
juice for
Saturday.
foosball.
That's it, man.
It's crazy to like you go back to Lawson Lucky, just the modern medicine. How
Yeah.
it used to be tearing an ACL was like, well, he's never going to be the same again. Now you can sprain your ankle. It's like, let's get some surgery on that.
Yeah.
So that's interesting.
Let's tighten that loose ligament.
Yeah. So, but the other thing, going back to injuries, this is the ideal week 1 situation. You're going to have guys banged up. And like you said, this isn't Oregon last year. This isn't Clemson. You don't really need these guys. So let them rest. Let them get healthy. If they play, great. If they don't, it is what it is. You're still going to win by 40 points. So,
Absolutely. Don't have anything motivational for you guys tonight. Do we have anything else?
nah, man. RIP, Sonny.
Yeah, R.I.P. Sonny, Mr. Seiler. That's unfortunate. Condolences to your family. Man, it's all about a DGD.
About to say that's a DG.
The
right there.
OG.
The OG
Yeah.
DGD. Man, sad. All right, we have another show coming up in about 5 minutes right here on the channel. Before we sign out, though, hey, there's a bunch of people watching right now. If you haven't watched that Mic'd Up series with Mays and Douglas County, you need to watch it. It's some of the best content you're going to see with regards to high school football anywhere. I put that up against anybody and anything. So when you're done watching us tonight, make sure you run over there and do that. We got another hour coming up to you in just a minute. We're going to give our final CFP predictions. We're going to give week 0 reactions. Talk about Mistake Monday. We're going to laugh at USC in 3rd and 22. Does Notre Dame finally have a quarterback? All that coming up in just about 5 minutes here on the channel.